What we do now have, though, is this video of the last moments before she took Casey White away from that jail. So we'll show you some of this video now. You can see the Sally Port. You can see them walking out. It's a very casual walk. Obviously, he's still a very tall guy, and he gets in the back of the car. And then if we come back out to where I am now, we're in this parking lot for one reason, John. This is the parking lot that police believe the car was stashed when they made their getaway.
Wow. Well, that is one of the more interesting prison video escapes we will ever see. This comes to us from Florence, Alabama. The corrections officer is named Vicky White, age 56. The murderer, the alleged murderer who was in prison, is Casey White, age 38. They're apparently not related, although perhaps maybe they bonded initially over their same last name. In any case, authorities initially described this as not a physical relationship, although now they've come around and said no, they probably do think it was romantic. And clearly over the last several weeks, and again, they've been missing since Friday, April the 29th, Vicky White, the corrections officer, was going through some changes. She announced her retirement. She sold her house, her $200,000 house, for less than $100,000, less than half of its value. And she bought a new car, which, as you heard in the video, she stashed in that parking lot where she then drove with Casey White and made their swap. People who know Casey White say he's manipulative and dangerous, and they're urging Vicky White to just get away.
If she is still alive, get the hell out. Run as far as you can and turn yourself in and contact somebody. Like, do the right thing before you lose your life or before somebody else does.
And authorities do fear that, in fact, Casey White has manipulated Vicky White and may turn on her the first opportunity that he gets. The evidence of a special relationship between the corrections officer and the alleged murderer has apparently been going on for several years. Back in 2020, Casey White was first brought to the Lauderdale County Jail. And according to inmates who have talked to investigators, Vicky White, the corrections officer, repeatedly gave him extra food on his tray, and that Casey White got the sort of privileges in the jail that nobody else seemed to get. Casey White apparently transferred back to a state jail. And then, while he was there, the corrections officer from the county jail, Vicky White, continued to communicate with him. And then Casey White is brought back to the county jail so he can face his murder trial, his capital murder trial, and that's where, of course, things start to take off. According to jail policy, and this is where it also gets pretty interesting, it is jail policy, because Casey White pulled a knife on somebody a couple of years ago, it is jail policy in Florence County that there be two sworn deputies to escort any prisoner to a court hearing or medical facility or whatnot. But in this particular day, on Friday, April the 29th, Vicky White, who is the boss of the corrections officers, she told everybody, look, there are no other officers available, so I'm going to take him by myself. And because she was the boss, nobody questioned that. In Florence, Alabama, and literally across the United States and around the world, a lot of people are saying, well, what would make somebody who is a model corrections officer, Vicky White, what would make her change? What would be so dramatic to make her essentially snap? And by all accounts, I mean, again, Vicky White was described as the model employee. She apparently had an unblemished record in her personnel file. Authorities described her as the most solid person at the jail. But this is all a reminder that sometimes people who are at the end of their career are facing a midlife crisis, and maybe a career that has been relatively ho-hum. Something comes along that offers them a bit of an adventure, something risque, and they get swept up in it. One can only hope that at a certain point, these two lovebirds, the Whites, will have a disagreement, and all couples eventually have a disagreement, and maybe, just maybe, that'll cause Vicky White to say, okay, this is not all it's cracked up to be, and I'm in a lot of danger here, and maybe at that point she simply tries to get away or tells authorities what has happened. Authorities do suspect that the Whites departed for some place in Florida because, of course. In any case, I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us. Tell me what you think in the comment section.